disarray. This move had two significant impacts. Firstly, it provided a readily available cash supply to fuel war expenditures for 4 more gruesome years. Secondly, this explosion of unbacked money led to a severe depreciation of existing currencies.
Its schedule
Take the
is for one fall.
Austro-Hungarian krona, for instance, which plummeted by 68.9% against the Swiss franc, a currency that managed to retain its tie to the gold standard due to Switzerland's neutrality during the war. Both these repercussions profoundly shaped the post-war economic landscape in Europe. Part 4. From Gold to Government. The Era of Fiat Currencies Post-World War I. The close of the First World War in 1918 left the participating European powers grappling with the complex task of revamping their currencies. Reverting to the gold standard might seem like the straightforward solution, but an equitable revaluation against gold would have exposed the stark depreciation of their currencies, a bitter pill for public consumption. Resurrecting the former exchange rates was equally unfeasible, as it would inflate the value of paper money unrealistically. This would trigger a surge of citizens seeking to convert their paper receipts into gold, which they could then lucratively sell abroad. So the governments opted for a more convenient route, the introduction of fiat money. Fiat money, backed by governmental decree rather than gold, triggered an era of unsound money marked by escalating state intervention to stabilize currency values. As the conclusion of the Second World War drew near in 1944, the victors began structuring the post-war economic framework, known as the Bretton Woods system, named after the New Hampshire hamlet where the agreement was signed. The crux of this scheme was pegging all global currencies to the US dollar at a fixed exchange rate, which would in turn be linked to the value of gold at a fixed rate. The newly established International Monetary Fund, IMF, assumed the responsibility of enforcing these exchange rates. Strikingly, this entire structure hinged on relocating all participating countries' gold reserves to the United States. On paper, Bretton Woods echoed the pre-1914 gold standard, as all currencies could, in theory, be exchanged for gold. In reality, the system didn't play out as envisioned. The United States stretched the rules, inflating its currency relative to gold, while other nations inflated their currencies against the dollar to propel economic growth. Eventually, gold was discarded entirely as the standard for currency. It was impracticable to tether an inflating currency to gold. On August 15, 1971, President Nixon declared that dollars would no longer be exchangeable for gold. From then on, the value of currencies would be determined by the open interplay of the world's major fiat currencies. As we'll delve into in the following part, this move would have calamitous consequences. Part 5. The Recipe for Prosperity, the Case for Sound Money. The zenith of sound money was witnessed in the 19th century, with paper money standing firmly backed by gold, a precious metal embraced by the free market for its remarkable attributes as a reliable store of value. This laid the foundations for a prosperous era. Let's delve deeper into how it functioned. The primary allure of sound money is its power to incentivize savings and investments, sparking sustainable, long-term economic growth. You see, humans have a strong positive time preference. We are inherently wired to desire immediate satisfaction over future contentment. Sound money nudges us towards contemplating more about the future, given that the expectation of our money's worth, appreciating over time, steers us towards maximizing our future earnings. And that's precisely the essence of investment, deferring immediate gratification in anticipation of enhanced future gains. Investment paves the way for capital accumulation. Funds are funneled into the production of capital goods, goods utilized to generate other commodities and future revenue streams. The greater the extent of capital accumulation, the higher the possibility of steady, long-term economic growth. The downside with unsound money is that it muddles capital accumulation. When governments meddle with the money supply, through actions such as tweaking interest rates, they inadvertently tamper with prices. This is problematic because prices serve as the vital compass guiding investors to make informed decisions without having to track every minute global occurrence. For instance, if a businesswoman in Malaysia chooses not to expand her office due to a sudden surge in the cost of copper wiring, she doesn't need to be aware that an earthquake in Chile caused this price hike. The price alone provides her with the necessary insight. However, governmental intervention disrupts this mechanism, preventing prices from accurately mirroring market trends, thereby distorting capital accumulation. Part 6. On shaky ground. The repercussions of unsound money. Unsound monetary policies, such as those adopted by European governments during the First World War, set the stage for myriad problems. Two glaring concerns stand out: recessions and perpetual debt accumulation. Let's explore these further. Let's talk about recessions first. Government interventions often manifest as centralized planning. The crux of the problem lies in the fact that no individual, agency, or department can fully grasp the sprawling dynamic matrix of preferences, choices, costs, and resources that constitute an economy. A lack of this complete understanding invariably leads to misguided decisions, and that's precisely what governments end up doing when they tinker with the money supply. Such meddlings distort markets, particularly capital markets, triggering a boom and bust cycle. During an upswing, artificial money inflation deludes investors into believing they can afford more capital than their actual capacity. The ensuing boom soon swells into a bubble. When it bursts, a recession inevitably follows. Next, let's delve into debt. To understand how unsound money propels economies towards debt, let's cast our minds back to the Great Depression of the 1930s. Governments progressively favored policies championed by British economist John Maynard Keynes during this era. According to Keynes and his disciples, the Keynesians, recessions are a product of inadequate total expenditure in an economy. The optimal response to recessions, they argued, was to ramp up spending. But how do you achieve that? One way could be to cut taxes, but people rarely spend the additional money they retain. The only other alternative is for the government to foot the bill for all the additional spending. As tax hikes during a recession are challenging, governments inevitably opt to expand the money supply. This has rippling effects on spending habits. Remember the concept of time preference from the previous part? The surge of cash circulating in the economy often nudges people to prioritize the present. Saving loses its appeal, paving the way for a culture of hasty and imprudent investments. Soon enough, people find themselves drowning in debt. This sets the stage for an unending crisis. Government intervention triggers recessions, and the Keynesian response merely worsens the situation. However, an alternative exists. We need to steer our way back to sound money and a revived gold standard. The emerging technology of Bitcoin might just be the beacon guiding us towards that. Part 7. The secret source of Bitcoin, its inherent scarcity. After years of unrestrained spending and mounting debt, it's high time for governments to make a U-turn and revisit sound money policies. This is where Bitcoin steps in. But how exactly can this pioneer digital currency guide economies towards recovery, stability, and growth? Cast your mind back to the gold standard. Markets selected gold as a value storage medium for two main reasons: its scarcity and predictability, implying that there's negligible risk of its supply surging enough to significantly erode its value. Bitcoin shares these features. In fact, its supply is literally capped. No matter the circumstances, the total number of Bitcoins will never exceed 21 million. Once that figure is fully in circulation, no more Bitcoins will be minted. The creation process of Bitcoins also contributes to stability, as the currency supply grows at a consistently reducing rate. Here's how that unfolds. Similar to gold, Bitcoins are mined. Computers networked across the Bitcoin system pool their processing capabilities to solve intricate algorithmic problems to unearth new coins. Once these riddles are solved, the miners, The computers instrumental in cracking the puzzles are rewarded with bitcoins. To avert digital gold rushes, Bitcoin's architect, Satoshi Nakamoto, incorporated a built-in safeguard. The number of bitcoins minted is halved every 4 years. The cherry on top? The algorithmic problems become increasingly challenging to solve as more computers join the solving process, ensuring a steady and dependable supply, mirroring the ever-increasing difficulty in mining gold that maintains gold supply stability. Bitcoin will persistently be issued in decreasing quantities until 2140, post which no more coins will be released. This sets Bitcoins apart. They are the sole commodity characterized by absolute scarcity. Contrast this with traditional resources like oil and gas. We perceive them as scarce, but we also know that if we are ready to invest the required resources, we will likely uncover new reserves. Despite our escalating consumption of oil, total confirmed oil reserves worldwide are actually increasing. Bitcoin is a stark contrast. No amount of time or resources can generate more coins than the algorithmically dictated supply limit. The takeaway is that Bitcoin's value can never be diluted by tampering with the supply, rendering it an ideal store of value. Part 8. Standing Firm. The unparalleled security of Bitcoin. Sound money doesn't solely hinge on the scarcity of the medium storing its value. It also requires robust security. After all, if you're uncertain about the safety of your bitcoins, you'd naturally seek alternatives. Fortunately, this digital currency boasts remarkable security features. The credit for this goes to the Bitcoin ledger, which employs a groundbreaking technology known as the public blockchain.
That's all, folks.